Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. The last days and Mahanirvana of Bhagavan Shri Ramana. Published by T.N. Venkatraman, President, Board of Trustees of Shri Ramanashramam, Tiruvannamalai. Published in 1991. The Maharshi was our great solace and we have lost him forever. During his illness, he taught us how a Jivan Mukta takes suffering. He gave us the most perfect lesson in forbearance. We know that excruciating pain his malady must have caused him, and yet he went through it in silence, submitting to every painful complication without a remonstrance, without a single word of complaint. To stand by and watch him suffer like this, unable to relieve the suffering, was the most painful part for many of us. The tumor progressed on its relentless course, unchecked by treatment, sapping his strength and eating into his flesh. But Bhagavan chose to be indifferent to it. He let the ashram routine go on as usual. There was no wincing on his face to show pain, not one groan to indicate suffering. He remained calm and peaceful as though nothing was the matter with his body, as though the ailment was on some other body and he was mere spectator. He took whatever medicine was given to him and submitted to the doctor's treatment, never showing preference for this or that line of treatment, never complaining against even anything, never remarking that remedy failed to bring relief. His calm, his submissive and uncomplaining attitude was beyond our understanding. It made us wonder whether he was really suffering at all. He lived so distinctly apart from his body that his face was radiant with graciousness while his body lay mute with unexpressed suffering. It has been asked why Bhagavan did not choose to be well again, if only for the sake of his devotees. A miracle would have been so easy a matter for him. The body would have obeyed his will so inevitably. The best answer is that there was no longer any individual in him who could will to be well again. And yet, we cannot but ask why Bhagavan took on himself this long suffering. Some may say that he had taken the prarabdha of his mother, whose life and breath he stilled by sitting at her deathbed with his hands on her heart and head. Some say that it is the sin of his devotees that Bhagavan took upon himself. To me, it is a riddle beyond our understanding. This suffering wounded the hearts of thousands of Bhagavan's devotees. Many of them would gladly have laid down their lives to relieve him. It was moving sight to see men and women sitting in silence and sorrow all day long and all night through. The Maharshi had such magnetic love. He had the power to heal the hearts of his devotees without one word spoken. Each devotee feels that Bhagavan has endowed him with special grace and attention. All feel that they received at his hands what they wanted. All devotees are satisfied that they are his chosen followers, though no word of Upadesh might have been passed between devotees and Bhagavan. Out of the most simple, the most unassuming human form, lying helpless on a couch, emanated such a dynamic force as captivated every heart that perceived it. High and low, learned and simple were equally at his call. But he desired nothing from them. Everyone was welcome to him. He had a smile for many, even on his last day. When his end was only few hours ahead, two peacocks sat screeching upon a neighboring tree, and Bhagavan heard and asked whether they had been given their usual meal of nuts. The way birds and animals showed their affection for him had always been remarkable. It was remarkable how Bhagavan kept perfect control of his faculties to the very end. During the preceding months, Bhagavan had let fall many remarks to prepare us for his physical death. Once he remarked to a devotee that this body is a load to be shaken off. He said, Bhagavan says, when a man goes to a market with a basket and fills it with purchases and then carries it home on his head, does he not long to put down this load? So, Bhagavan cast away his body. He has flown from the cage, but for us the loss is irreparable. We have lost forever our solace in life. The scenes immediately after Bhagavan's departure from earth were enough to remind one of the city of Ayodhya when Rama deserted it for the forest. The surging crowds, unmindful of the heat, the whole of the following day, the outpourings of the devotees, the loud cries of Haro Hara, the women, the children, as well as men standing patiently in the throng, everyone eager for the last look at the body their beloved master had worn so long and had now discarded. All this was moving beyond words. Though the living beauty of his body is taken away from us, we still have the grace of Arunachala. When Bhagavan first realized the self, he chose Arunachala as his permanent abode. He came there at the age of 17 and never left, never thought of leaving. He has made Arunachala sacred for his devotees as it was for him. The holy place of Arunachala has been made holier by the lotus feet of our master. The whole place is full of memories of our Bhagavan. Every spot, every scene has an association that call Bhagavan to our minds. Looking at the slopes of the hill, one can picture his graceful form moving up and down with a stick and kamandalu. Looking at the couch, one imagines the gracious form of Bhagavan recumbent there again, with his radiant eyes turned upon us. Going into the dining hall, one imagines Bhagavan there as before. One can feel his presence in every corner of ashramam. Deep down beneath our pain, and we know that Bhagavan has not left us. He has only left his body. He who taught us in silence can guide us in the spirit. His presence and influence, though unseen, abide with us. Though the physical presence is lost to us, if we seek his light, we shall find it. The light of Bhagavan has merged in the universal light of the self. A remarkable ocular demonstration of this was a phenomenon of star-like radiance that trailed across the sky at the very moment of his Mahanirvana. It was seen by many even as far away as Madras, and many who saw it knew intuitively what is portended. Bhagavan, may that light guide us and pervade the universe. May He continue to lead us to the light, and may we be worthy of his guidance. By Dr. T.N. Krishnaswamy. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
From Face to Face with Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Testimony of Professor Syed M. Hafiz. Unlike all the saints, sages and prophets, the Maharshi is the only sage who has realized the truth eternal that keeps the flame of spiritual wisdom alive. He is the perennial source of the inspiration to the earnest aspirant on the path of spiritual development. Without him, the world would not have had the light of the Spirit to dispel the darkness of material existence. Sri Ramana embodies in him the truth that is beyond time and space. He stands supreme in the realm of spiritual attainment and is the true benefactor of the whole of the human race. In him we see that glorious realization which at once excludes and transcends all religions. His teachings gave the clearest expression to that one inexpressible, universal, spiritual experience, seeking which every earnest aspirant treads the path of inward spiritual development. The Maharshi never dogmatized, he never sermonized, never gave any mantra, or expected people to follow any set mode of worship. What the Maharshi does for us cannot be conveyed by word of mouth. His invisible gaze silently transforms the lives of the men and women who, by virtue of their past good deeds, are gathered around him, waiting for his beaming attention and paternal guidance. All his great work for the improvement and betterment of mankind is done invisibly and silently. His silence is more eloquent, more effective, more far-reaching than the sermons of any number of teachers put together. His grace is ever ready for us. All that we have to do is to qualify ourselves by our self-effort and self-purification to make ourselves worthy of his attention. In March 1935, I visited the Maharshi. It was during those days that I realized vividly his greatness as a divine master endowed with all spiritual and human qualities. While I was lying ill with high fever, the Maharshi was considerate enough to visit me 3 times and prepare upma for me with his own hands. I shall never forget his grace that he gave me during my serious illness. His sense of humanity was as great as his sense of spirituality. The mere sight or tale of human suffering touched his heart. All he expected of us was to closely and critically analyze the content of our own being to discover what we really are. His words went straight into our heart because he lived what he taught. Contact with Ramana Maharshi can change our outlook and convince us not only of the reality, but also with the immense utility of spiritual values. He does not believe in propaganda of any kind, nor does he lecture. Most of the time he sits silently, transforming the hearts and minds of those who are privileged to be near him. By the living example of his intensely methodical and practical life, he helps and reforms us. His plain and simple philosophy was vividly reflected in his day-to-day conduct. He enjoins on us that there is only one self, one life which is vibrant in every atom, one light which is vibrant in every creature, one love that embraces all in oneness. According to Sri Ramana, unless you realize purity and goodness in yourself, you cannot do anything really good to others. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. I meditate in the heart on Ramana, the boundless ocean of being awareness bliss, of which the universe is but a wave, the steadfast one established firmly in the heart cave's depth, free from distracting thoughts. I'm going to read from Sri Ramana Gita, which contains the teachings of Ramana Maharshi that were communicated on different occasions to different gatherings of disciples. This was put together by Sri Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni. Chapter 2, The Three Paths. In the Chaturmasya of 1915, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi uttered in a verse the essence of his teaching. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram yahamahamiti sakshad atmarupena bhati hridi vishamanasaswam chinvatama pavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. In the interior of the heart cave, Brahman alone shines in the form of the Atman with direct immediacy as I. Enter into the heart with questing mind, or by diving deep within, or through control of breath, and abide in Atman. Whoever understands this verse, the essence of Vedanta uttered by Bhagavan Maharshi, will never again be assailed by doubt. In the first half of this verse, Bhagavan has pointed out the location of the self in the visible body of 5 elements. There itself, identification of the self is affirmed, difference from God is denied, and direct experience is affirmed, thus dismissing the various descriptive marks of the self. In the second half, instruction is given for the practice by the disciple of 3 different methods, which are in essence one. The first path is termed Margana, quest, the second Majjana, diving in, the third Prana Rodha, control of breath. This is the second chapter, entitled The Three Paths in Sri Ramana Gita, the Science of Brahman and the Scripture of Yoga, composed by Ramana's disciple, Vashishta Ganapati Muni. Chapter 5, The Science of the Heart. In the aforesaid year, on the night of the 9th of August, Ramana Muni spoke exhaustively regarding the heart. That from which all thoughts of embodied beings issue forth is called the heart. All description of it are only mental concepts. The I thought is said to be the root of all thoughts. In brief, that from which the I thought springs forth is the heart. If the heart be located in the Anahata chakra, How does the practice of yoga begin in Muladhara? The Anahata chakra is the fourth, and the Muladhara is the first and lowest of the 6 centers in the spinal cord. The heart is different from the blood circulating organ. Hridayam stands for Hrit, the center which sucks in everything, and I am this, and it thus stands for the self. The location of this heart is on the right side of the chest, not on the left. The light of awareness flows from the heart through the Sushumna to the Sahasrara. From there, it flows to the entire body, and then all experiences of the world arise. Viewing them as different from the light, one gets caught up in samsara. The Sahasrara of one who abides in the self is nothing but pure light. Any thought that approaches it cannot survive. Even when an object, owing to its nearness, is sensed by the mind, it is no hindrance to yoga, as the mind perceives no difference. The state in which awareness is firm and one-pointed, even when objects are sensed, is called sahaja sthiti. The state in which objects are absent is called nirvikalpa samadhi. The whole universe is in the body, and the whole body is in the heart. Hence, all the universe is contained in the heart. The universe is nothing but the mind, and the mind is nothing but the heart. Thus, the entire story of the universe culminates in the heart. The heart is to the body what the sun is to the world. The mind in Sahasrara is like the orb of the moon in the world. As the sun gives light to the moon, even so this heart gives light to the mind. A mortal absent from the heart perceives only the mind, just as the light of the moon is perceived at night in the absence of the sun. Not perceiving that the true source of light is one's own self, the mentally perceiving objects as apart from oneself, the ignorant one is deluded. The jnani, present in the heart, sees the light of the mind merged in the light of the heart, like moonlight in daylight. The wise know that the superficial meaning of prajnana is mind, and the true meaning is heart. The supreme is nothing but the heart. The notion that the seer is different from the seen is only in the mind. For those that abide in the heart, the seer and the seen are one. The thought process arrested by swooning sleep, excessive joy or sorrow, fear and so on, goes back to its source, the heart. The ignorant one does not know that at such times thought has entered the heart, but one in samadhi knows it, hence the difference in names. This is the 5th chapter entitled The Science of the Heart in Sri Ramana Gita, the Science of Brahman, and the Scripture of Yoga, composed by Ramana's disciple Vasishta Ganapati. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram yahamahamiti sakshad atmarupena bhati Hridi vishamanasa swam chinvata majjatava bhavana chalana rodhat atmanishto bhavatvam. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
The essence of Vadai and Bonda. The principle of equivalence was at work in all Bhagavan did and taught. He knew when to make a distinction and when not to. Once during the month of Margali, mid-December to mid-January, when Pongal was offered at the time of the Ushatkala Puja, Manavasi Ramaswamy Iyer arranged to offer Sargare Pongal and Vadai for the whole month. During this month considered Brahma Muhurta of the year, as per custom everyone got up early and attend early morning puja. M.S. Nagarajan, who was in charge of the mother's shrine, got up at 3:30 am, had his bath in Pali Tirtham, swept the mother's shrine, decorated the deities and made 2 fires in the kitchen. The first morning, he placed the pot of rice for Pongal over one fire and on the other a pan of oil to cook vadai. Ramaswamy Iyer requested vadai because it was one of the ancestors' day, a day on which by tradition vadai is offered at lunch. So Nagarajan ground the black gram which had been soaked overnight. Never having prepared the vadai before, when he tried to shape the dough into neat, round, flattish shapes, they did not come out right. Repeated attempts ended in failure. Finally, he threw the dough back into the vessel in a fit of frustration. Just then, he heard something behind him. When he turned to look, he found Bhagavan standing there. Bhagavan gently consoled him. "It doesn't matter. You have added too much water while grinding the black gram. Now make round balls of the dough and fry them. They will then be bondas." Nagarajan did accordingly. When the bondas were served to devotees at breakfast, Ramaswamy Iyer complained, "Look here, did I not ask you to prepare vadai? Then, why have you made bondas?" Nagarajan, afraid to say anything, merely glanced at Bhagavan, who immediately came to his head. Bhagavan said to Ramaswamy Iyer, "What does it matter? If the cakes are flat and circular, they are vadais. If spherical bondas. The stuff is the same. The taste is the same. Only names and forms are different. Eat the prasadam and don't make a fuss." Everyone was astonished. Ramaswamy Iyer could not contain his joy. "Wonderful, wonderful." Later that day, when Ramaswamy saw Nagarajan, he said, "You are a lucky fellow. Bhagavan himself is supporting you." Nagarajan, later reflecting on the incident, said, "The world consists of names and forms. These are naturally many, but what lies behind them is one and the same. Name and forms are not real, although we think they are. Brahman, which underlies them, is real, but we forget it." What wisdom lay in Bhagavan's words. Le monde est fait de noms et de formes. Ce sont naturellement beaucoup, mais ce qui se cache derrière eux est un et le même. Les noms et les formes ne sont pas réels, bien que nous pensons qu'ils sont. Brahman, qui les sous-tend, est réel, mais nous l'oublions. Quelle sagesse réside dans les paroles de Bhagavan.